All right, we are here with Justin Camuso-Stall. Justin is the Associate Director of Visual Content at Bowling Green State University, and I wanted to just get him on here for a little fireside chat about, talking shop about production and all the things that we like to talk about in this newsletter. So, Justin, welcome to, well, it's not really a show. It's welcome to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about, outside of the video, I like to start things off by tell me something that people might be surprised, to know about you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think something that people might be surprised to know about me, I mean, you can tell I have movie posters behind me, so it's not actually that surprising that I have a obsession with film. I see over 100 new films, or as many as I can per year. But that's actually not the surprising thing. I think an actual surprising thing a lot of people don't know is I'm a very avid runner. I sometimes passively mention it at work, thinking that everyone just assumes that, or I assume that they know that I do that. But I realize that they don't. So when I tell them I've ran multiple marathons and that I'm constantly training for marathons, they're always quite surprised to hear that. So that's just kind of been part of who I am for almost 20 years, honestly. And I've just never stopped. And I think people don't realize that about me, and I kind of just assume that they do. But yeah, that's definitely a part of my whole personality that not everyone always knows about me.
That's awesome. I hate running, but good for you.
It's so weird. I mean, people talk about it like it's therapeutic, and I could understand why someone's like, no, I totally disagree on that. But it really is. If I go several days without doing it, I really start to really I start to feel bad about myself, and I start to I can't clear my head. It's the best way for me to start a day is to just get that out of the way. I get all my thoughts out. I get any anxieties I might have for that day are just kind of shut down pretty quickly. So it's pretty wonderful once you get into the swing of it.
I love that. And how long have you had the mustache?
This is going on, I think we're on almost 2 years. I gotta say Top Gun really started the trend back up. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a full beard that I was trying to grow. I've never grown a beard in my life. And I've been waiting for years for it to connect right here, and I was like, well, let's just see how it grows out, and I did, and then my kids were like, you gotta shave that, that's disgusting. So I was like, well, let me just roll with the mustache, and I kind of did it as a joke for a day, and then my niece was like, that looks awesome, you should keep it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
that's all it takes is one person to be like,
one person.
And it's kind of amazing. It's kind of like you're in a weird club now, because now when you go out and you're out to dinner, or maybe out to get drinks, or even just shopping, if somebody else has a mustache, they'll just be like a mustache. I'll be like, hey, I like yours. It's very weird and cool.
Yeah, I like yours better. Yours is a little fuller than mine. I like yours better, but maybe I'll get some hair transplants from you.
Yeah.
But so tell me about your role now at BGSU. Tell me about your journey into higher ed video.
Yeah, sure. So my role is the Associate Director of Visual Content here at Bowling Green State University. And so what we like to say on that is I basically manage and create and help distribute what we call produced content, as opposed to social made specific content. So not that anything that social media or people on our social media team are doing is not considered produced. We just differentiate it as a produced is something that we're filming with, we film with Sony cameras. So we're doing that. We're taking it back with us. We're editing it on the computer, versus maybe what our social media team is doing, which is filming on their phone, editing it in real time, probably on CapCut or TikTok, and producing it. So we produce that kind of content. And it's not always specifically for social media, but for a large majority of what we're doing, it is for our social media. I often say that without it, we would not have a stage for the work that we do. There are certain things that we do for in-person sessions, or for example, like we have our student orientation sessions that happen over the summer, and we have a video made specifically for that event that doesn't live anywhere else except at that event. But a lot of what we do ends up on social media because it's our largest platform for any audience. So that's mostly what I do here. I manage a team here, and we've come a long way from, the days of everyone's trying to get on video as fast as they can. Everyone's trying to make a 5-10 minute video for Facebook and YouTube. That is not the world that we are in anymore.
Hmm.
And the idea of fast, quick, engaging content is, we're well into it. And it was before TikTok, but now we're really into it. And I think what we do that is such like a balance between something that people would capture on a phone versus what we capture is there is that extra level of quality in how the image is presented. So for some audiences, that might be a turnoff. Like for younger audiences, sometimes when they see content from a university that is filmed on a professional camera, they think it's a commercial and they kind of instantly dismiss it.
Yeah.
They're looking for generated content that looks authentic, that looks real, that looks true to life. But what we try to do is still film and capture authentic moments, just in this highly produced or more polished sense, and that kind of adds this. We believe, and we know it to be true, that adds this extra layer of quality to our university.
Hmm.
So it is like, we intersperse it within the things that are shot on a phone that are maybe from a student's perspective specifically, but then you'll see something that we make that is still trendy, still using trending audio, pop music, like something that's engaging, but the visuals and the rhythm of it are just a little bit more produced.
Hmm.
And so that adds this like, oh, not only is my school authentic or is where I go look like a fun place, but it like looks like it's something that I actually want to be a part of because it's like cool. And it has this like, it makes us look like we're not just a small, like, school that is just this place where people are filming on their phones all the time. It's actually a place where, somebody cares enough to like elevate this experience. So
Yeah.
before I started here, they didn't really have much of that type of content that they were producing in house. So I made it a mission to produce that content often and as frequently as possible, and really hit all these different areas that we're trying to focus on. Prior to this position, I worked for the University of Michigan on their social team. So that was directly in their Office of Communications. And I did not work there for a very long time. I actually started there 2 weeks before the pandemic happened. So my time there was, I think, very different than anybody else who was there before, anybody else who's been there since. But I learned so much about higher ed social. That was the first higher ed position that I had. And, I realized also in talking with my colleagues there, most notably my boss at the time, who was Nikki Sundstrom, who ran the department, she had social media and an understanding of it on lock. And it was in a way
Hmm.
that was so far and ahead than anybody else I'd ever worked with or anybody else I'd ever seen manage social media content. She just got it. And when things shifted and changed, if she didn't understand it right away, she was like, how do I find out how to understand this? And how do we use it to the best of our knowledge? And how do we push the boundaries of what's possible and what people expect out of social media to give our audience something that maybe they didn't even know that they wanted or needed, but love and, actually will engage with. And so I think having that job, even though like it was kind of partially remote, kind of, really my job duties, I felt like were changing every day because we were adapting to everything that was going on in the world. And, I was working for the number one public research institute in the country.
Hmm.
So we were obviously doing so much about COVID and everything that was happening during the pandemic, and people were listening. People were coming to us for answers, you know. So that took on a whole different responsibility than I've ever had before. But I think of that job as like this crash course in not only higher ed, but a way of understanding social media and social media content, especially visual content, in a way that I had never really had before. I I graduated in 2014 with my degree here, from here actually, BGSU, with a film production degree. And my first job out of college was to produce videos for a private company, but it was to produce videos, to produce photo, and also manage all of their social media, because back in the early 2010s, that was we're often called like the slash generation. This was
Yeah.
the jack of all trades. This was when it all started. It's like, can you produce video? Can you take photos? Can you design graphics? Can you run a social media account? And, I kind of like was just learning as I went along with it. And then I think the same thing was true when I moved on to a different position at the Toledo Museum of Art, which was also had already kind of pushed its social media to a point where a lot of museums were not at, and I got to be folded, or I was folded right into the mix there. So I learned so much more about the power and the effort that goes behind social media, because I was already working somewhere that had this pre-established, channels. So I think all of that has kind of weirdly led me to here, which I didn't realize how much I was learning, or how much knowledge I had gained, or how much I was understanding, until I got somewhere like this, where I was brought on because they saw that in me, and
Hmm.
they wanted, me and everyone else here to start pushing the boundaries of what's possible for somewhere like Bowling Green State University. And I'm really proud of everything that we've done. And I am just excited that we get to keep creating, and that our leadership is like, push further, push harder. Like, don't feel confined. Don't feel like we have to do anything, because we can do it, and we'll make it work, because it's working so far for us. And it's just really exciting.
That's awesome. I love Nikki Sundstrom too.
Yes.
She was on my podcast, Higher Ed Storytelling University, a few months ago, and yeah, got the same impression. Like she just like
Yes.
knows what's up, and it sounds like you haven't experienced maybe the level of higher ed bureaucracy, that other in-house videographers have dealt with.
Yeah.
What's because a lot of it's quite the opposite, I think, at a lot of schools, where
Yes.
like you said, they'll hire a videographer and then expect them to do the photos and the videos and the
Hmm.
Canva and all the stuff, and post on social, and then they're just handling requests from like all departments and stuff like that. Have you
Yes.
experienced, I mean, wouldn't want you to out anybody, but have you experienced any challenges that come along with a typical higher ed videographer role, or has it all pretty much been like you've just had amazing leadership that
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a specific instance, but I know that I can definitely agree to everything you're saying. Not in higher ed specifically, but my first two positions that I worked were those like jack of all trades, do it all roles. So I definitely have an experience with that, and I know that that is the expectation in so many other places. And the same was still true even at the University of Michigan. I was hired as an audio visual specialist, which is like very like wide ranging.
yeah.
But then the pandemic happened, and there's not too much visual I could do because we weren't there very much. So it was a lot of like graphic generating. So I became, way more in tune with my graphic design skills than I had been before. And I learned a lot more about digital animation and all that kind of stuff. But I think what you're saying is totally true, because I was just at, I don't know if you are a part of or have ever interacted with like the University Photographers Association
Mm-mm.
of America. Okay, you should definitely get involved with them. So it is this group that has been around, I think, for 50 or 60 years. And they are basically just a group of university photographers from across the country. and they meet once a year for like a symposium. And in the last couple of years, they've started to integrate more video and videographers into their positions. So I actually went to the symposium this year, got to meet so many other people, and I met so many other video people who were either in these like positions where I'm like, wow, you work for this like very huge institution and you have this very niche carved out job, and like you have a person who only does lighting in your office. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But then I also met a lot of people who were like, I work at a school that has less than 10,000 students, less than 5,000 students, and I am the social media person, and I am the video person, and I am all of these things. So it definitely exists. And I am very fortunate that while I still wear so many hats, like the same thing, like I am the video producer, I need to be somebody who's good at lighting, I need to be somebody who's good at sound design, I need to be somebody who knows how to interview a subject and get the right answers out of them if no one else is there to get those. I need to know how to edit. I need to know how to do all of these different things. I'm still a photographer. I pick up on the photo side when our team needs it. That's all still in our office. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot, and I think that's just by nature of our positions and our roles. I often joke. This goes way back to like being in high school when it was a really cool thing that we had a multimedia class, and it was like
Yeah.
only 5 students got in there, but only 5 students even wanted to be in there. So it was, pretty easy. And it was like, it was basically all we did was we learned a little bit about video, and we worked in, not Final Cut. I'm trying to remember what like iMovie. And
Yeah.
we had these cameras that you had to hook up with a FireWire. And it was just so, but at the time it was so cool. But because for some reason, people knew that I worked with cameras and they knew that I knew how to edit on a computer. I don't know why teachers and other classmates would come to me all the time with their like computer questions.
Hmm.
Like if their computer wasn't working, they would ask me why it wasn't working. If they needed help designing something, they would ask for my help. And I was always like wondering like what is it about people who work in these types of positions or who are interested in video or tech. It becomes like a general umbrella, like, well, you must be good at all of it. Like, you know how to 3D
Right.
print, right? And I'm like, no, I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I definitely like I am very much a creative, like a versatile creative. I've just been that way my whole life. I played like 5 or 6 instruments growing up, and
Hmm.
did photography, and I went to school for painting, and then stumbled into video, and then you're learning how to light and do sound and all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a special place in my heart, I think, for creatively versatile people, but yeah, it does kind of spiral out of control.
Yeah, it does.
So tell me about, I'd love to hear about like kind of a noteworthy piece of content that you've created, like something that's like one of these produced pieces of content. Tell me what it was. Tell me what the process was like for creating it.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many that come to mind, and I, it's hard to narrow it down. I'm just going to pull one that happened within the last, 365 days. Uh, as with most universities, we are tasked with creating some sort of a holiday video. That just seems to be a trend that has not gone anywhere. It seems to just be baked into, we have to have this. And, it's really hard to differentiate yourselves from other universities. Now, we do have the bonus of like, if you really think about it, our audience is probably not seeing other universities' holiday videos.
Yeah.
So we don't really have to worry about seeming too comparative. But for us, we try to see what others are doing and try to make sure that we're doing something a little different, or maybe if we're borrowing an aspect of it, we're not creating it for beat. But it also helps us to look at other universities' holiday videos to see like, wow, this is so long, and like I don't go to this school, and this means like nothing to me, and this is 5 minutes, and like they do not have a charismatic, leadership team, and I don't know why they thought that they could put them in this video. Or like, there's so many little things like that where, we're just constantly thinking about how do we make ours different from everybody else's. So last year we had this idea that we were going to do something kind of in the style of like Christmas Vacation ish. It was going to be, the building was going to be like our main building on campus was going to be covered, head to toe in Christmas lights, holiday lights. And, we would make it look like it was our president was hanging them up, and he was going to get in all sorts of hijinks, just like Chevy Chase does in Christmas Vacation. And then, of course, he goes to plug it in at the end, and it doesn't work. And then, his wife flips the switch, and everything was plugged in, and oh, we did it, and it was a nice moment.
Yeah.
We had kind of done a similar type of video the year before that, so we were already kind of like on it. But this one was going to be more comedic. Our president is very engaging. People love him and love to work with him, and like incoming students already know who he is. But so we were kind of leaning on like, it's going to be funny, he's going to sell it, it'll be great. But we ended up, so we had this planned in like July. We call it our Christmas in July pre-holiday meeting. It's the earliest we plan for any video 6 months ahead.
Yeah.
Just because we know there's so much approval process for this one. But by the end of September, we had our homecoming celebration last year, and our homecoming theme last year was the 100th anniversary of university bands. And the alumni in the marching band was such a huge, like, untapped, unrealized audience for us that we had not even really been considering until this event had happened, this homecoming, when so many people came back. It was like, and the visuals we got from it, like that the band had done, they'd done an alumni show during halftime or pre the game. I don't remember when, but like it was amazing. And like all of the content that we produced around the marching band around that homecoming time went through the roof. Like it was doing so well. So naturally, we're getting closer to the holidays. We're trying to plan our, Christmas Vacation thing. And then I don't remember where the idea came from, but somebody was like, should probably incorporate the marching band. Seemed to be a big hit. How do we incorporate them? So then comes the time to pivot. We try to plan for something 6 months in advance, and then you realize that there's something else here that could probably work even better. So you pivot everything. And so then we decided, let's work with the marching band. Let's figure out a way to not just feature them in the video, but let's make it kind of about them, because it's the 100th anniversary and we have all year to do this. Like, it doesn't have to be just homecoming. So right. Let's keep rolling with it, and we'll keep it part of the campaign. So we reached out to them. We were seeing if they were interested, and they were like, well, what do you need from us? And we were kind of like, I don't know, could like the band, like, it's almost like I thought of it like the Muppets of like, we got to get the band back together.
Yeah.
Kind of like, can they come from different sides of campus and they're all playing a song, and it like all comes together, and then they have a crowd and, they cheer or whatever. And the band director was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And we were like, we're trying to think of like a non-copywritten, non-holiday specific song that we were like, okay, what could we get away with, both in terms of not having to pay for, not having to license, and also something that is more seasonal, not like Christmas specific. So we landed on Jingle Bells, and our band director fully wrote out like an entire piece for Jingle Bells that actually matched with like this concept of like building the instruments together. So we had kind of laid out the concepts of like, what if it starts with the trombones, and then it starts with like the trumpets, and then it starts with like the drums? But never in my wildest imagination would he have then composed a piece that is written as such. So then we just basically like recorded a music video for this recording of Jingle Bells that they had done. And it all culminates with them kind of like in front of our main building, University Hall. They're kind of like still performing, but they're in their marching formations, and they're kind of moving from side to side. And, our mascots show up, and there's cute little moments between them and all this stuff. And we get some drone shots where you see the band is starting to like get into place, but at the same time, it's starting to get darker out. So it's kind of like, okay, what's going to happen here? Because it's getting very dark, and it seems like there's going to be this like drone shot of like them all lined up. And so then finally the last piece you see is this drone shot of the band all lined up, but it's pitch black. and we put individual circular battery powered lights on all of their hats, and they all turned them on, and it spelled out Happy Holidays in
Oh
front of
wow.
our big building on campus. And it it was easily one of the most successful organic pieces that we've ever had. It was huge. Like, I am still so proud of how it came together. And, we filmed it in 3 days, like so much planning, and it was filmed over 3 days. But like those 3 days were like 2.5 hours this day, 2.5 hours this day, two and a half, because you're working with the student schedules. It was like the week before finals. So they all had much other more important things that they could have
Yeah.
been doing. But I am still so proud of that piece, and it's kind of like it was so good that it's kind of like made me nervous that I'm like, well, I don't know how we can top it, but I'm really hoping that we're going to, and we have some really good ideas for this year.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I and so we're at 1 through. Do you have a hard stop or
I'm good. I'm
okay.
sorry. I can ramble.
No, we're good. I've got time. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that, and I'm almost like stressed. I'm like stressed out, like figuring out how you coordinate that because that's just like
It
so
was,
many
yeah, it
moving
was like the
parts.
largest piece of, I don't often, from an official title role, I'm not a director, but from a like film director role, I that is an area where I always knew that I thrived. Even when I was in school, I was like, I thrive at being the on-set director, like making sure everyone's where they're supposed to be, making sure the vision is coming out. And so like I felt that in a way I hadn't felt in a long time, in a positive way, where I'm like standing on a ladder, and it was the largest group I've ever directed at once. I mean, realistically, I was directing over 300 people. Like they were
Yeah,
all out there. Was it
yeah,
300? I think it was. But either way, like largest group I've ever directed. Now, granted, I'm just telling the band director what to do, but still, he's
yeah,
looking at me. He's like, "Where do you need them?"
yeah,
And at the same time, I'm directing our camera people. I'm directing, all of our PAs who are there to help, all of our staff who's there helping. I'm making sure the president is where he's supposed to be, getting those moments, capturing everything, going through our checklist. And I thrive in that type of environment. So, like, once it's happening and we're in it, I excel at it, and I love it. So, yeah, it's stressful. And then once you're in the moment, it's like, this is the best feeling ever.
yeah, yeah. The adrenaline just
Yeah.
makes the stress go out the window. I love that. I wanted to ask you too. On a different note. So you went to film school. Um, is that correct? You went to film school?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah, I
yeah,
went
because you
here
went
and
to
got a film
BGSU.
production degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of paths. Like, I mean, there's a lot of paths to a job in video production. I feel like there's the traditional film school route. I've worked with and hired a lot of people. At my previous days at a production company that had that film school background. There are people like me who just kind of stumbled into it, and someone just handed you a camera and
Yeah.
some lights and said, figure this out. And so I'm just curious to know, like, what, like, are you glad that you went through a formal film production curriculum?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I am so thankful that I did this every day. I often tell, because we have a lot of students who work for us, and sometimes they're film students, sometimes they're in media productions, other similar majors where they're working with cameras and things like that. But I often tell them that, you know, I I am so thankful that I get to come to work every day and do a job that I love, but I also get to say that I'm doing a job that I got a degree for. And I know
Yeah,
so many people who don't do that. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think learning how to pivot and understanding that something is not for you or that you need to change is imperative. And if you don't see that, like, sooner than you should, like, I think you really should consider it. And so I'm thankful that I get to do that, and I get to say that I did that. But I think, as much as I will give credit to people who just like jumped into it, or who maybe similar to you, like picked it up and learned on your own. I think there is different, everyone learns differently. And for someone like me, I, I do well to learn on my own, but I do best when I am in like a come to class at this time, like that, and then listen to this person talk to you. I do my best there, and I know that I'm not the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
Other people are like, nope, I thrive best from 1 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the morning watching how to YouTube videos.
Mm.
Like, and that's great. I think there's a place for that. But I think this conversation of like whether or not it's worth going to film school, I mean, that's existed even before positions like mine existed. So 10, 12 years ago, 12 years? Yes, 12 years ago, I went to school with a bunch of film people who were like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just going to move out to Los Angeles and work as a grip on a film set and just work my way up, which you can still do. That's
For
still a
sure.
possibility. But I think film school had built so much of a foundational knowledge of understanding in a way that you're not going to find if you're trying to do it specifically on your own always. For example, like um, I feel like our social media channels, our YouTube interests, our film, TV, video consumption, it's all catered towards stuff that we'd already like or already know that we would like or stuff that we're already interested in. Rarely are you ever being like, I don't know anything about that. Or like, I've never even considered that. But the thing with going to school is there is a curriculum where they're going to like put you through stuff that you're just like, I have no interest in that. But
Hmm.
then maybe after a week of this class, you're like, okay, I totally lied. I love this, and I never would have even known this had existed if I wasn't put through this kind of like teaching. And I think there are so many things that I learned there that actually translate, even if it's not on set making movies, it still translates so perfectly into what I do. Proper planning, pre-production work, current like on-set behaviors, on-set attitudes, on-set
Yeah.
um, you know work in general, post-production, meeting deadlines. I mean, having a boss or somebody in a leadership position here is the same as having a producer in Hollywood. Like
Right.
somebody else is going to have the final say in most cases, and they're looking to you to just kind of execute a vision in the best way that you know how. But they still want this message across, or they still want this goal met, and so it all translates. It's the same. And so I think having that experience of being in film school, and they made us do things like on your final film project, you have to not only make the movie, you have to turn in your pre-production binder. Like, and if you
Oh.
don't have that, you're going to get points taken off for it. And a lot of people moaned and groaned about doing that part of it. And they're just like, I'm just going to shoot a movie over the weekend with my friends. And then they didn't do great.
Yeah.
They didn't do good on that assignment. And for some of those folks, like I'm not calling anyone out, some of those folks ended up not being in this career field because they thought it was just, well, I can just go like hang out and make stuff with my friends,
Yeah.
which a lot of it is like, it's fun. Like what we do
Yeah.
is fun. But if
Maybe
you
on the
don't
social
have,
media side, like,
yes, but if you don't have that like work ethic of like, knowing that you're supposed to, pre-plan for this, have the script ready, have some ideas, inform your talent and the rest of your crew of what's going on, like that is the same with in film production. That's the same with television production. That's the same with making videos on TikTok. Like the best TikTok content creators, they don't just wing it.
yeah.
They don't. I know there's this like there's this like veil that is like hiding to make it look like, oh, I just picked up my phone and I'm just like casually like I'm just gonna film something today. That is never the case with your
No.
favorite TikTok content creators. They plan that stuff out so far in advance. Like even if it's a day in advance or a couple hours before, it's never as authentic or organic as they make it look
Yeah.
because that requires time and talent. So it all translates, and I will never regret going to school and getting my degree in film.
That's awesome. Yeah, these TikTokers, it's not, they don't like accidentally wake up with a full face of makeup and
Right,
just go their camera
right.
happened to be rolling.
Yeah, they don't accidentally film all of their videos during like the hours of like 7 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. where the sun is coming perfectly through their window, like just
Right.
after they worked out. And, like there's
Yeah.
like all these things. I'm like, yeah, they know when golden hour is. They know, like,
Yeah.
and they plan for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, shifting gears, tell me this last question for you. Tell me about the gear you guys use, and a bit about your post production workflow. I'm curious. I'm always curious to know like how people are set up, like what systems they're on. So you
Yeah.
guys said you guys were on Sony cameras. Are you on? Are you guys doing like Premiere? Are you in DaVinci? Like, tell me a little bit about how you're set up.
Yeah, definitely. So we are video wise, we shoot all on Sony A1s. So we have not explored too deep into like cinema camera just yet. Partially because some of what we do is this like, pre-planned, almost commercial type stuff, like the holiday video. But a lot of what we do is what we call run and gun.
Yeah,
It's event coverage sometimes. Like, next week is move in, for our students. And we're going to definitely go and we're going to film them getting out of their cars and pushing their carts up to the res halls. But to do that with like a cinema camera setup and to have like the fishing wire like over around your
yeah,
head,
yeah.
like is so off-putting to the guests that we just like, we have a little like RS3 Pro and we like a DJI RS3 Pro Ronin, and then we'll put like a Sony A1 on there, something that looks light but packs a ton of power. And it allows us to just like make that content more casually in the moment and edit it pretty quickly. Like it's not anything too, the bit rate isn't super high. So if we have to get something out same day, we can do it. And often that is the case. I learned another thing from Nikki Sundstrom. You know, uh, I learned like, timing is everything. So if you go to graduation or commencement ceremony and you film it and that video doesn't come out for 2 weeks, you
Yeah,
know who cares about it? No one.
yeah.
So I have set up the standard that, for something like graduation, that video will be out that day.
Mm,
If not on our socials that day, because I didn't finish it until late that night, it'll be first thing the next morning. That'll be the first thing people see. So they'll be like, I graduated and I'm already seeing myself on camera in this highly produced way.
right.
It is not for everyone and it requires a lot of patience and time and, just you kind of have to know what you're getting before you even go. So that is a large part of like the workflow that we do for some of those events. Not everything requires that. Some stuff we have more time on, but and then regarding like what we're using, we are still primarily using Premiere. It's easy because our university, like that's part of the university. Like we get the Adobe Suite,
Yeah,
and most of the students coming in that we're working with, um, that's what they know. Like they
yeah.
either learned it in high school or they're learning it in their classes right now. So Premiere is just kind of like our go-to. We have started to get into DaVinci a little bit more. Um, my one other colleague has been kind of exploring it a bit more than I have, but I I think it's definitely shifting towards that way and that direction. It's just we all have to get there, and basically I have to get there. It's so amazing, and I've done some really awesome things on DaVinci, but it's not secondhand nature of the program that I've been using for
Yeah,
14 years. So
same.
it's just a lot. But
I have so
yeah,
many
we're
friends in my
using that.
life that are like trying to convince me to switch over to DaVinci, and I'm like, I've tried to edit a whole project in it, and the basic editing functions operate largely the same as Premiere, but like when you
Yeah.
get into doing like a title or something, now it's like this whole different like node based
Yep.
stuff that I'm like, what the heck? Like this, I ended up like, having to just like go back to my shorthand and like import this project into Premiere and do things like quickly the way I knew how to do them.
Yep.
And I find that that what people don't talk about as much about DaVinci is collaboration is more difficult.
Yes.
Once you discover team projects on Adobe Premiere, like
Hmm.
it's a life changing thing. like a month ago, started working with my editors in the official team project sort of workflow, and it's like it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's like like
Yeah.
the amount of files you pass back and forth. Otherwise, I mean, if you're working with contract editors, if it's all in house on a server or something, it's all contained.
Yeah.
But yeah, collaborating with DaVinci. Well, I mean, I am speaking out out of turn because I've never tried to collaborate with DaVinci.
Yeah.
I just imagine it's just with the way that the projects save and but also just the fact that everyone, most people, the industry standard still is Premiere, and
Yeah.
it's hard to get away from
Yeah.
that.
And we can't use the collaboration feature in Premiere, mostly because we do have a server, but it is operated not out of our office directly. It is set up kind of with our ITS department, and so it's definitely more of like a storage and
Yeah.
file retrieval space. It's not so much of a working edit space. It's just tricky when you're in, working in higher ed, especially when you're working for, a public institution. The idea of having your own server internally in your own department is like pretty much a no-go just for security reasons.
Yeah.
And so I think like most places and most people we talk to, as much as we'd love for it all to be online and all just be able to like, I'm going to open this project that you did yesterday, be through a server or through some other like connected service. Sometimes it's like you got to pass me your hard drive. Like I know you have that footage on there, so just give it to me because this will just be much faster.
Yeah. Yeah, the old school way of
Yep.
yeah, passing hard drives around. When I first started video, it was like the 3x5 hard drives that are like the size of like a
Yep.
book, and I had a assistant at a production company I was working at was like loading footage onto it for me, and she erased the whole thing on accident.
Oh, my nightmare.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one downfall of passing drives around, but
Yeah, exactly.
well, dude, thanks for chatting with me. It's been great to get to know you and get to know your workflow a little bit and see what you guys are working on. If you send me that holiday video, because
Yes,
I'll put it in the newsletter.
definitely.
I'd love to see that. So yeah, man, where can people connect with you at if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am probably most active on Instagram and Twitter X. It's Twitter. Uh,
Yeah.
I think they're both the same. I forget. I changed one of them. No, they're both the same. Okay. I'm just at the real REEL Jerstin JERSTIN. It's a weird nickname thing. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd.
All right,
My
cool.
favorite. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, man.